Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gary Holt from Exodus and formerly from Slayer, and you're listening to The Razor's Edge.
This is Jules from The Razor's Edge with Ben and Phil from Khemmis at Damnation Festival. First of all, guys, many thanks for doing the interview.
Yeah.
And absolute pleasure to have you in the UK at long last.
I know. It's been a long time coming.
It has been a long. Have you tried to get over before and it's just not worked? The pandemic and everything got in the way, did it? And,
that is exactly what happened. We were supposed to be here in 2020
for you were supposed to Desert Fest, weren't you? That's right. Yeah, I remember you getting announced. Yeah.
And then that whole lineup got rescheduled to like 2 years later or whatever, and then we had to cancel that time because Mastodon and Opeth wanted to take us out on tour. So we're like, when this happens,
what are you going to do? Right?
Yeah.
And that must be a wicked tour as well.
It was a really, really great tour. Yeah,
it felt like we got to level up as a band, not just in terms of like exposure, but in terms of like figuring out how to make this sort of setting, like in an arena, be our comfort zone rather than playing like a small club.
Yeah, I must admit, I've seen a few bands on a stage like today not look at home, but you guys absolutely owned it today. Looked at you.
Thank you.
There's all the interaction, moving around, and it seemed like, as you said, you're probably used to bigger stages through tours like the Mastodon and Opeth one. Yeah.
I mean, that for me is like it's more fun now to do this type of show. It feels like what you express comes back like tenfold in this sort of setting, more so than it does. Like I still love playing like a small show too, especially if it's like really intimate and everybody that's there is so fucking pumped and like the energy is really like chaotic and fun in that type of setting. But it's a totally different thing, and I think that it's a little bit easier to view this like it's church or something, like you've alluded to in some earlier interviews. It feels a little bit more of like a collective sort of experience.
Yeah, Damnation's sort of like that festival, as you put in notes today. It's labelled an extreme metal festival. It's everything from yourselves to the post-rock in here now, Judy Christmas in the background, and more instrumental post-rock stuff going on as well. It's a really good mixture. And how was it for you guys from the stage? I think from what I could see, I was at the front. I kept turning around. There seems to be a lot of people in there anyway. So,
It was great. We played at 1:30 for people that weren't there, and that was easily the best crowd that we've ever played to at 1:30 before.
Cool.
I mean, there were literally thousands of people there just after lunch. It was fantastic. It felt like I think it exceeded our expectations in every possible way.
Well, I must admit, I've been waiting to you guys for years basically, and it sounded superb from where I was, and you guys all look like having an absolute blast of a time on there as well. So come back soon quickly is all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
I want to see you in a sweaty club in London somewhere.
Exactly.
So obviously last album, Deceiver 2021, really good response I think on Nuclear Blast. How do you feel that whole sort of cycle's gone for you guys?
Like I said, I mean, it's like created new opportunities that I didn't expect the band would ever get. So I'm very grateful for that. And I think I'm also really grateful for the personal growth that album inspired in us as people in a relationship with each other, as a band, as people in our own personal lives. I think that we all learned a lot from that period of time and from the work that we put in on that album. So I'm sort of have an emotional attachment to it that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. And so beyond just the touring around it and the opportunities that have come up, I have a lot of gratitude for what initially was a really shit sort of year or two that was responsible for the creation of that record.
I was going to say, was it recorded during the pandemic, as a lot of bands I've spoken to today are talking about their latest albums?
So we recorded it at the very beginning of 2021, the beginning of January through the middle of February.
And we started writing it immediately when the pandemic started.
Yeah, basically. I mean, we did the bulk of the writing remotely. For a good chunk of time we were completely isolated, and it wasn't until early fall of 2020 that we were actually able to get together and be in the same room to, it's one thing to put together ideas and share them remotely, but it's another thing to get in the room and see how they feel. And also, speaking to Phil's point about the experience of being on Nuclear Blast, it having Nuclear Blast release this album that is such an intentional and emotional album for us, that the opportunities that have been presented to us to play festivals like this and to go on bigger tours have been a way for us to sort of practice what we preach and what we've learned from a couple of years of pandemic life and learning to feel gratitude and joy and feel close to each other in a way we hadn't before. I think that for a lot of people, it might have been easy to like slip back into your old bad habits. And I think when you see us live, you see a band that is so filled with gratitude and a recognition that none of this was promised to any of us, that, like you were saying, it looks like we're having a good time there. It's because we are. It's because I've always wanted to feel like I'm putting on a show that if it was the last time I was on stage, I'd be happy with it. And now, not just now, but like since we've been touring behind this album, every night I feel like that. Like, I don't want it to end, but if that's the last time I'm on stage, then I did the work. We did the work collectively, and it was something special. And it took us 10 years to get there, but some folks never get there.
Well, that's right. And as I said, the hard work and graft you've put in before the COVID period, and the influence that it's had on the album as well is obviously, it's clear to see. Where are you sort of in that album cycle now? Are you sort of like getting the end to the tour for that album, do you think, or?
Yeah,
I suppose the question is, what have you got planned for the rest of the year in 2024, I suppose, really?
Yeah, so we'll be coming back over to Europe next year for the first time in maybe 5 years. Yeah. I would love to tell you where all we're playing. I don't know.
Well, as long as it includes London, I don't mind,
We've announced a couple of things, I think. I don't even know what we've announced.
I don't know if we've said...
Copenhagen's announced.
Oh,
I know
is it?
that.
Okay.
And then there's other stuff that'll probably be announced in the next couple of weeks, some other festivals.
I was going to say, so it's more a summer festival. So
Yeah. So we'll be coming over for a few weeks in June.
Like June, maybe early July. Yeah.
And then aside from that, we just... So, the album came out end of 2021, and we just started getting to the place where we were starting to have new ideas, for what the next record... We had some conversations about... the sort of big picture, like how we might approach it from a conceptual level. But now it's if you're writing an essay, you get your skeleton, and then you start to put meat on the bones. And now we're at the point where we're starting to do that. We're starting to think about how we flesh these things out. So we'll start getting into more serious writing mode in the new year.
Okay, cool. And is that how it tends to work with you guys? Is it very much a collective effort, or do you come up with the riffs and you just build on that, or how's that whole sort of like idea generation, I suppose?
I think like in a lot of ways it's always been a very collaborative experience for us, and I think that with the last record we sort of had to experiment because of the sort of the method that we were presented with, where we're doing things remotely in a way that felt positive but also maybe not as fun sometimes. And I think that we want to like learn lessons from that, but also continue on the spirit of how we used to write stuff too. So I think my main hope would be, for us to be able to do this individual work where it feels like you can compose something, bring it together, and then leave it on the table without any expectations of control. So that we can develop these ideas naturally together. And then also maybe like half of the record is that, and half of the stuff that ends up on the record is stuff that's just like, but that really should happen later, and right now what we need is something that's like, Zach, what do you think you want to do? And then build it from there, from like a rhythmic foundation. I think that that's the most exciting thing for me potentially for a new record, is like to try and write some stuff from the perspective not of like melody and song structure, but from the perspective of embracing like a rhythm section as its own catalyst for inspiration, and then seeing how we as guitar players write around and in complement to that, rather than the other way around, which is often how we've approached things. So like that's the new direction that I think could be inspiring.
It helps too. So David Small has been playing bass with us for a little while now, and he is an absolutely ungodly musician. Plays bass, guitar, keyboard, synths, like you name it. Just an incredible musician. And we're really excited about writing with him, and Zach's excited about approaching it from that sort of like classic rhythm section of the band, but also letting there be a new creative voice, because we're a metal band, so like it's always going to be guitar driven, but it doesn't necessarily have to be exclusively guitar driven from the get-go. It will wind up being very guitar forward because of the music, but it might start with a drum beat or a bass line or a drum and bass thing, and then we figure out how to sort of build around that.
Okay, cool. So we may be looking at, 2025 for the next album, potentially.
I think probably that's probably reasonable to expect that, I would think, depending on, you know, how fucked up the whole like global ecosystem is at that point. But I think it's probably reasonable to expect that. I think we'll probably make really good progress on the ideas that we have for new stuff, you know, in this next year, and then it takes a little while for those to be something that we can actually bring to fruition for somebody to have.
That's the thing too. Like, we could record the album in August and it would still not be able to come out till like February.
Yeah,
sure. And then you got.
But I think we'd be aiming to do something.
Yeah,
and you got
like
that. Difficulties around pressing and all that sort of stuff as well.
That hasn't gotten a lot better. So
no, not yet. Something I've noticed about you guys is you seem to love a cover version. You know, Alice in Chains, Down in the Hole, one of my favourite bands. So when you did that, it's like, marvellous. Rainbow in the Dark.
Yeah.
And the Pines you've just done as well. What's the name of it? Sorry.
In the Pines.
In the Pines. Are they sort of the bands that have influenced you? You've definitely got a classical influence. I was telling Lisa beforehand, one of my mates who's more into classic metal, massive Thin Lizzy fan, and I said, listen to Khemmis. They've got that dual guitar work going on.
Totally.
And he was like, yes, brilliant, man. Yeah. So do you take influences from, are they sort of the bands that you're into, or just, you know, stuff that you remember from your youth, or how do you tend to choose a cover version you're going to do?
I mean, sometimes it's that. Certainly Dio, huge influence for us, right?
Yeah.
Everything Dio touched was gold. Dio era Sabbath, people will try to fight me on this, but like,
Heaven and Hell.
I mean, dude, like,
one album.
Dehumanizer is such a criminally underrated album. Oh my god. So I mean, stuff like that, like Alice in Chains, you know, big part of, you know, like my musical genesis. Like, in terms of how I play guitar, it's probably in there, but like I don't ever think like, oh, this is how Jerry Cantrell would do it.
Yeah, sure.
But I think
the spirit of that music, though,
is like the spirit of it. Yeah,
like I don't think that we've approached it from that angle of being like, let's do an Alice in Chains part, but like the spirit of like, sort of wrestling with your inner demons that was present in their music is like so closely related to how we approach songwriting that like, without it being a conscious influence, like that is almost a direct lift.
I think that. You know, that Dirt album is probably it'd be in my top 5 anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Of all time. It's just every single song is a banger. So
the other thing, though, the other part of your question about like how do we pick a song, and a lot of that has to do with, does a song feel like it has space for us to do something with it that, you know, is not just playing it straight? Because like I could go to the bar down the street and hear karaoke. Like, we don't need to just play the song straight, but I also don't want to like disrespect the song. You know, like it's a song that moves us enough to want to cover it in the first place. So being able to find a balance there, like our rendition of In the Pines, you know, or even with the Alice in Chains cover, like we took some liberties in there because we always want to approach it from the perspective of, if we wrote this song, how would it sound? And we loved the song enough to want to play it in the first place, but that doesn't mean we would have the same guitar licks or you know, play the same guitar solo or things like that.
I think that's what I like about that whole Magnetic Eye Records releases. They've done quite a few now of albums. I think most of the artists have tried to, they've not gone totally away from the original, but not copied it absolutely per se, and added their own little flourishes to it. And I think you know, great selection of albums they've put out.
Agreed.
So fantastic.
And I think, with all due respect for these classic records, like I think sometimes when you hear those things, you're like, it would have been cool if they did this. And like sometimes it gives us the chance to do that. Like in the Dio cover, like we kind of like an up-tempo riff that like is under the solo that's not there on the record.
And
so
like the record is just back to the verse riff.
Yeah, and just like getting the chance to do those little things is like, it's kind of a special way of like, I don't know, like honoring some like alternate version of a thing that you love, you know, and being like, but what if, you know?
Yeah, cool. So any song you want to cover anymore? If you could say to the guys, right, we're going to cover this song, where are you going? What's next on the list? I'm not putting you on the spot to say what are you going to do, but what would you love to do next?
I'm not going to choose a song, but I think we should do a Priest cover at some point. It's such an important band to us as like a unit, I think, and the spirit of what they do is like, it's so inspiring to us, especially like their earlier records, and just like the way that they have fostered this brotherhood of metal and like the community that surrounds it, that like I think we owe it to the influence that that's had on us to do a cover song at some point.
I'd love to hear you do something early Iron Maiden as obviously. I think you could rip that to pieces and do a great job.
I would love to. I mean, there's a long list of things that I think we could have a lot of fun with. But I would really like to cover the song Sam Stone by John Prine.
Okay, not one I know then.
It's such a dark song. I mean, John Prine's music, so if you're not familiar with him, he was a sort of folky country singer-songwriter from the 70s, you know, came up in the sort of like post-protest era folk kind of stuff, but all very narrative-driven. You know, every song tells a specific kind of story. And, you know, I'm from the South, so a lot of those stories feel very familiar to me. The song Sam Stone is about a Vietnam vet that comes home, you know, with a heroin problem, and his life deteriorates. But it's not just the heroin; it's what war did to him. I mean, like, it's a dark song.
Yeah.
A lot of John Prine songs are kind of cute and quaint, and like, you know, have this folksy quality to them. And like, that song is really, really sad. And I think we could make something very. I think we could take a sad song and make it even sadder.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm definitely going to go and check that out now and see how I think you could do that. But yeah, that sounds awesome.
You should listen to that whole first John Prine
his
album.
self-titled record is
pretty
amazing.
Okay, cool.
If you like that kind of stuff. If you don't,
I'll find out, won't I?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I've been finishing the interviews. A similar sort of question, I suppose. A lot of bands coming here this weekend and playing album sets in its entirety. So, sort of the same sort of question. But if you could see any band do an album in its entirety, you know, what would that be? You know, putting you on the spot a bit here, guys. I know, but
do they have to be alive?
no, they can be dead as well.
Oh my God!
They can be dead as well. You know,
Makes it hard
take
to
any
do.
liberties you want with this one.
Jeez, okay. I never get to see Dio Sabbath. I never get to see Dio. So, I mean, to see Dio Sabbath do really any of the records would be amazing.
Yeah.
Or just to see Dio with his band do Holy Diver, top to bottom. Like, that would be...
My secondary gig was Dio, actually, Sacred Heart Tour.
Nice.
I've got some age on you guys. One gives me a bit about being a bit older. Ozzy Osbourne first, Dio second. You don't get much better than that, do they?
Yeah,
That's great.
But that's cool. And you?
I mean, I don't think any of us in the band have ever gotten a chance to see him. He still might play a show at some point again, but I would see Tom Waits play just about any fucking thing.
Yeah.
And almost every record is like a bona fide classic. So I kind of don't care, but you know, if like he did like a Rain Dogs tour or some shit, or even like a Small Change, you know, like an old like a record like Small Change or something.
Oh yeah.
Like, fuck. I mean, I don't think that music or art really gets a whole lot better than that, honestly. So for me, that would be pretty amazing. Or like Kate Bush doing Hounds of Love or something like that would also be incredible. So I would probably veer more that sort of direction. These things that are rare and that like these people are still around, but like
definitely,
I've just been dying to see for forever, and it's never happened.
Excellent, great answer, guys. So back to Denver, is it quite soon? Is this just an in and out flying visit?
Yeah.
Oh man, you staying over tonight, or you straight away?
Nah, we're staying over tonight. I'm trying to enjoy myself as much as I possibly can this last little bit here.
I'm in town. I'm staying for 2 days, so I fly out on Tuesday. But I'm going down to London tomorrow, and I'll see as much London as I can in like 36 hours.
Oh, brilliant. Well, yeah. If you need any help, I work in London for 25 years. So if you need any pointers, give me a shout.
I'll let you know.
But guys, it's been an absolute pleasure, and
thank you so much.
Can't wait for you to come back next year.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for festivals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website www.therazorsedge.rocks.